Hello and welcome to the Financial Future Guide. I'm your guy and I'm your guide. My name is Alex, and in today's video I am going to explain my reasonings as to why I would never purchase Air Canada, and to even further that, why I wouldn't even throw a few cheeky dollars at any airline company even if it took me out to dinner first. So this video will not only explore one of Canada's hottest stocks, but airlines in general, as my views stem not only from a company but an industry level. Air Canada can be found on the Toronto Stock Exchange under ticker symbol AC. Alright, now let's get into it. You don't need to scroll far on the Wealthsimple Top 100 Most Popular Stocks to find Air Canada. In fact, it's number one on their list. With Wealthsimple Trade bringing on many new investors, it is evident that the huge drop in Air Canada's stock price has many people excited. With so many new investors in the market, especially in Canada, I thought it was important to outline some of the cautions that you should be aware of before jumping into this stock. Air Canada is the largest Canadian airline by both fleet size and the amount of passengers moved each year. The airline was founded in 1937 and provides scheduled and charter air transport for passengers and cargo to over 207 destinations worldwide. Their cargo service, Air Canada Cargo, is also Canada's largest provider of air cargo services, as measured by cargo capacity. For many years, Air Canada has had a near monopoly for international flights in and out of Canada. This has obviously led to Air Canada charging a premium for travelers that simply don't have other options. Over the last 10 years, the Canadian government has been busy signing new bilateral agreements and enhancing existing agreements, which essentially expand the options for Canadian consumers when they are selecting their flights. This is great news for consumers, but not great for Air Canada, who is facing an increasing pressure on pricing in order to maintain customers and their market share. Now, many of these issues that I have with Air Canada could also be said about most airline companies. So let's talk about the industry in a general sense. There are many market researches that have been conducted by airline companies over the last decade in order to determine what are the most important factors that influence customers on choosing a particular airline. The results are often the same: pricing and schedules. Various airlines have made the claims over the years that brand loyalty is becoming increasingly more important. They say that they are seeing larger amounts of consumers making purchases based on particular airlines, and although this may appear to be true, those who are seeing these results are also top competitors on price and schedule, so it's hard to credit these flights strictly on brand loyalty. For example, if you could choose between Air Canada and some bootleg airline for a similar price, you would choose Air Canada. But if there was to say that the ticket price costs 15% more than that bootleg airline, most people would question if the added benefits are worth the increase in cost. Another huge problem for these airlines is that the industry is cyclical. Investopedia's definition of a cyclical industry is a type of industry that is sensitive to the business cycle, such that revenues generally are higher in periods of economic prosperity and expansion, and are lower in periods of economic downturn and contraction. When the economy is strong, people have more disposable income, which often means they're more willing to take vacations, making use of air travel. On the other side of that, during bad economic times, people are much more cautious about how they spend their money. People will look for more financially effective ways to take vacations, often closer to home, in which they avoid air travel as a whole. Take the 2008 financial crisis, for example. The US industry lost a collective $24 billion, a margin of negative 13%. These losses continued for years until 2010, when they eventually began to be profitable again. Even looking at the recent data in 2018, airlines on average were working on an 8% profit margin, which is extremely low. So these are a few factors that the industry has been facing for years. But what about now? The whole world is living in a state of uncertainty. The airline industry is no exception. Companies are still trying to figure out post-pandemic policies. Can you sit next to each other, or must you leave a seat? Are masks mandatory while on board an aircraft? There are so many issues that have yet to be solved. Unions for pilots and flight attendants have urged groups such as the Federal Aviation Administration and the Centers for Disease Control to implement consistent mask requirements for passengers, but so far nothing has been passed. In an already low-profit industry, can airlines even handle this kind of pressure without destroying the little margin that they currently survive on? I didn't like the industry to start with, and I sure as hell don't like it now. I'm certainly not comfortable investing in companies that operate in such a roller coaster of an environment. It's not only me though. Many would recall that Warren Buffett dropped every single share of the 4 airline stocks he was invested in, admitting that at first he viewed the airline industry as a good investment, but now he believes he made a mistake acquiring them in the first place. Now, I'm not saying we should blindly follow Buffett, but he is one of the most successful investors out there. Making our way back to Air Canada, let's have a look at their stock quote for today. Today they closed at $15.92 Canadian, up 31 cents on the day or 1.99%. They have a market cap of 4.718 billion, and they are not currently showing a PE ratio given this is a negative. Their earnings per share is negative 7.55 over the trailing 12 months. Now let's think about that for a second. Earnings per share. If Air Canada has 296.35 million shares outstanding, and for every share they lost $7.55 Canadian, that is close to $3 billion that the company has lost in the trailing 12 months. Air Canada is literally bleeding money. Yet just because the stock price is down, it seems to have everybody excited. Moving on, let's take a look at the range. Now this is huge because obviously Air Canada plummeted and kept falling. They've traded anywhere between $9.26 and $52.71 Canadian in the trailing 12 months. And last but not least is their dividend, in which they're not paying anything because they have no money to spare. So maybe Air Canada is in the news for some positivity? Absolutely not. Potential exposure to the virus reported on 2 Air Canada flights from Toronto to Halifax. This is not the kind of headline that not only Air Canada wants to hear, but the airline industry in general. There are already far less people catching flights, and these are the kind of headlines that make people say absolutely not. Some other big news came out this week that the Air Canada CEO is stepping down in February. He has been running the company since 2008. However, he's probably looking at this one and saying, you know what, I'm just not about it. The recovery on this one looks a little too rough for me. Now, before you go and comment something along the lines of, but Air Canada went bankrupt and they're still here now. Yes, you're right, that is true. However, Air Canada was once listed under a different stock ticker, and then when the company went bankrupt and there was a restructuring, those shareholders lost everything. They essentially came back as a new company on October the 4th, 2004, when the new Air Canada stock was created. I often go into further depth around the company itself, but for Air Canada, I just don't like the industry they're in. They're facing far too many headwinds for me to feel confident. So while Air Canada is throwing their money out left, right, and center, I'll be putting mine where I want it, in companies that are proven in strong industries that I believe in the long-term outlook of. So in other words, Air Canada, yeah, it's a no from me, dog.
Attention passengers, we've now reached our destination. We hope you enjoyed the flight and have a nice day.
And that's all for today. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to see videos similar to this one.